Well, it's martini time again. Did you have a good St. Patrick's Day? I did. As you notice, I had Irish Spring, and we had a dinner party last night. And here's my Irish Spring, backwards. And I bought some good Irish whiskey, and so I'm back with my martini today. And gin is an English drink, and so whiskey is the Irish drink. So we're back with the martini, and I wanted to notice my little martini glass here. This is very special to me because the frog, and it's even on this little globe here. Well, you know the fairy tale about the princess and the frog and the golden ball, is that the frog is a transitional figure, a threshold figure, because he can be on the land and in the water. He can go either way. So he can be in the consciousness, surface consciousness of the world, or he can go into the unconscious. And if you drop your olive, you see he can go down and get it. But the idea is that the frog can go into the unconscious and retrieve treasures. It's the golden ball of the princess, you see. And so there is a poem, excuse me. There is a phrase from a poem. I don't know the author right now, but the poem goes, a bodiless child full of life in the gloom, crying with a frog voice, what shall I be? A bodiless child full of life in the gloom, you can just, a bodiless child full, without body, full of child, embryo of life. So a bodiless embryo, full of life, in the gloom, in the unconscious, crying with a frog voice. Did you hear the frog? What shall I be? This really hits me because this is basically a description of the yearning for insight, the yearning for the answer to a puzzle, the yearning for truth, the yearning for realization, the yearning for God, the yearning for oneself, the yearning for purpose, the yearning for meaning. All this yearning is the frog voice crying, what shall I be? What shall I be? So we watched a movie last night. I had bought at Costco Hacksaw Ridge, and I was looking forward to seeing it, but some of the dinner guests didn't want to see a war movie, so we picked up an old vintage movie called Vertigo by Hitchcock, and we watched that, and I hadn't seen that since maybe it first came out in the 50s. So it was like a new movie. I just remembered maybe one scene from it. And just to give you a brief, this movie, when I watch movies, they become a frog voice in me. What does this mean? What does the movie mean? You see, because the movie is while it's very clear, it's also a mystery in several ways. Well, particularly the movie becomes a mystery for the hero. He's got to solve the mystery, but it's also a mystery for the viewer to see what does the movie mean to me, other than it's just entertainment. Most people stop there. You know, I just liked it, I don't know why. Or they talk about the movie objectively. But the meaning of a movie really snaps when it becomes you, when it opens you up, when it makes you whole. You know, in other words, the movie. All right, so the movie, just to give you a really brief outline, and I hope you go back and see it now. But there was a detective. He had an encounter with death, hanging from a roof when he was chasing somebody, and another detective, policeman trying to save him, fell off and he looked down and he saw the vertigo, and he became paralyzed by this fear of death. So he had this fear of vertigo. And so he was wounded. He had to quit his job. So this begins, and he kept saying he was a wanderer. You know, he just wandered around now. He had money, so he was just kind of loose. And he was looking for healing. There was a frog voice calling, "What shall I be?" He had gone through a portal. See, he had stepped in a rabbit hole. Something had changed. He had encountered death. Not death so much as somebody else's death, but he encountered his own mortality. And this is really the story of the Buddha, who, Gautama, as a prince, left his pleasure palace and went into town on 3 different occasions and encountered old age, sickness, and death. And this was an existential encounter, like we encounter when the doctor says you've got cancer, or you almost get run over, or you have a near-death experience. This encounter with death changes everything. The illusions, all the things we thought were important, pop away. We get grounded in reality when we encounter death. So he had this encounter and had a vertigo, a fear of death. And so the adventure starts, and he meets, and he's induced to go on a surveillance mission for this friend of his to follow his wife, who was possessed by this dead person in the past. And so he began to follow her and became really curious about her and became obsessed with her and fell in love with her. And he wanted to save her. And she fell in the river in San Francisco Bay, and he pulled her out. And he fell in love with her. And she was like in Carl Jung's terms, she was an anima projection. She was the goddess projected on the screen of a woman. And she was, Kim Novak, you know, very aloof, very warm and aloof at the same time. That kind of touch but don't touch, very, you know. And that was the whole presentation. So then she goes to this tower in a mission and goes up to the top and jumps off. What he feels, she commits suicide. There she's lying down there. So, you know, he's not accused of anything, and he goes into a dark night of the soul. He goes into a paralysis. He can't respond to anybody. He just sits in a mental institution, blankly staring. He's lost his center. He's lost the world. So he finally comes out, and he's wandering around, and he sees that looks like her. That is, so he follows this woman and goes to the store and follows her, and he finds out where she is, and he knocks on, and he goes and he convinces her to go out to dinner, and he begins to see her again, and she's resisting and resisting, but yet she's giving in and giving in, and so he tries to dress her up like the goddess, like his vision. He's trying to put the pieces together, and she resists, you know, but then she gives in, and so they go out to dinner, and she puts on a necklace. Snap, it's the necklace that the goddess wore, that was worn in this portrait of a woman in the museum that she was possessed by. But anyway, his other woman was wearing that. So he took her back. He went out to dinner. Let's go out to dinner. And he went back to the mission, and they went up the tower. Come on, he drags her up there, and he's free from the fear of vertigo. And he confronts her, and she confesses that she was hired to trick him into believing that she was suicidal, so the husband could kill his wife and get out of town with all the money, you see. And just as she confessed and she wanted, "Can you still love me?" She was in love with him. And so, "Can you see me as a real woman, you know, instead of a goddess, you know?" And then a nun comes up out of the gloom and says, "Who's here?" And the woman, she looks like the figure of death. And so Kim Novak steps back and falls out the window. But that's the snap, you see, where the illusion and the reality came together, and he was healed of his fear of death and vertigo. So it was a very interesting frog voice to me. A lot of these movies, they're kind of like Mr. Coffee. You know, remember Mr. Coffee? It's a slow drip, you know. You get Mr. Coffee, and will the coffee ever get made? You know, it's a burgle, you know. So a movie like this is kind of like that, a slow drip of the frog voice perking along all during the day. It perks, you know, the frog voice is calling, you know, what does it mean? What makes it snap for you? What makes it all, the inner and the outer come together, you see? And this is what the movie was kind of like about with our hero. There was a split between reality and illusion. You know, there was a separation of the psyche created by this vertigo, this death experience, where he didn't know what was real and what was not real. What's real and what isn't, you know. So he was kind of like Jake Sully in Avatar, caught between the sky people and the Pandora. What's real and what isn't. This Never Land, this Alice in Wonderland, this intermediate zone where you don't know what's real, you see. It's kind of like an induced schizophrenia, an induced split or schism, you know, that he has to penetrate and solve and connect the dots and bring the psyche back together and restore his center and restore himself to the ground of reality, you see. So it's a lot like that for me, in that the movie was about us. Because when we fall into one of these vertigo situations, and we all do, it's kind of like the rug is pulled out from under us. It's like an earthquake. Everything was stable and you knew where everything was placed, and suddenly boom, like that, you see. And then everything is knocked down and everything is moving. That's why an earthquake is so terrifying. It's because there's nothing to hold on to. Everything is moving, including you. You see, everything you thought was stable is now moving. So it brings into doubt your whole reality. You see, everything's doubtable now. Everything's quiet. And we're kind of like that in our society today with this war on truth and what's real. Trump's story or the newspaper story, or what's truth, you see? What's the illusion and what's real? So we're kind of like in a national vertigo. What can we hold on to? You know, usually you hold on to the journalist and you hold on to the president and Walter Cronkite and the president are both going to tell you the same reality. You see what I mean? But now it's like two. See, what's real? That creates a vertigo, and it's an existential crisis because you can't be two, you have to be one. There's only one reality. If there's two realities, you're crazy. And you can't choose between them, you know. So we're going through an induced schizophrenia. We did it to ourselves. We're inducing this vertigo so we can put together reality again and come out with a new reality, hopefully. I'm sure we will. We'll come out with a new world, a new reality that's stable again. Because you can't maintain a schism between two worlds, the illusion, what's real and what isn't. Everything's just like a psychic earthquake where there's nothing to hold on to. That's one reason Trump was elected, because people that felt they were in vertigo held on to him. You'll stop this crazy world. You'll stop me from falling, so I'll hold on to you, you see. And then once you hold on to someone like that, you can't let go because you feel like you go back into the vertigo. You'll fall, you see, so you hold on. So it's a very precarious position we find ourselves into because all the things we held into are now in doubt. And this is a good thing and a bad thing. So, this is what people, Buddhism and yoga and all of these spiritual practices basically, and Zen particularly, invite the vertigo, induce the schism so that you have to restore your center through your own efforts and not rely on external securities and external posts to hang on to when the wind blows, So everything is impermanent. And so you have to find the center within yourself instead of relying on external centers. So anyway, I found my frog voice, and I'm glad I was able to share with you what I discovered in Vertigo, and I hope you pull it up and watch the movie from a different viewpoint. And a lot of times when I get a shift or in a movie like this, and then you go back and watch it from a different perspective, it unfolds in a new way that you never saw before. You see. So anyway, thank you for being here with today's Martini, and I'll see you in the morning at our Zen moment. Thank you.